Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Hello, friends. Welcome to Connect Impact Hub's live event. I am so stoked. We got Francesca in the building, and we are going to be learning today about human trafficking. But we're also going to get to learn a lot about Francesca and the wonderful work that she's doing in the community. And so, who we are, why are we here? Connect Impact Hub is on a mission to end homelessness. We are on the ground working with our folks, our homeless population, and helping them get the resources that they need to be able to get back on their feet. This conversation is important to us because we do work with folks from all walks of life. And so I'm really looking forward to looking at how do we know the signs of human trafficking, who to connect with in the communities that we live in as we serve. So Francesca, I'm passing the mic over to you. Please introduce yourself so we all can get to know you. And thank you so much again for being here with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me and being willing to get up and be ready by 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. I am so grateful and excited to have this conversation. I am the founder and CEO of Humansave, and we are a mental health nonprofit dedicated to serving survivors of human trafficking and child sexual exploitation in California. Our youngest client was just 2 years old. Our oldest was 85. We also provide trainings and workshops for schools, for other businesses, for communities, and for other service providers because we just know we cannot do this work alone. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much. I see we have a comment, by the way, Francesca. So I'm going to give a shout out to Jane. Thank you so much, Jane, for bringing us together. Jane says she knows how our hearts are dedicated to what we do. So Jane, thank you so much because you are just as dedicated as well. So two of our favorite beautiful faces, and so are you, Jane. So thank you for being here this morning. And anyone else that's listening as well, thank you so much for being here. I see Lisa's in the building. She said, "Happy Saturday, everyone." Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for being here. So Francesca, wow, just listening to that intro, 2 years old to 85 years old. Man, I worked in the emergency room and we got to see some different stories as well. How do you, like, what inspired you to join this field? Let's start with that. Because I read your bio and I also been following you and I see how dedicated you are. So what inspired you?
That is a good, I started off in law enforcement intel, and that's where I first started to hear more about human trafficking, the dark web, and especially what happens to kids. And I think that really sparked that interest initially to do something. I didn't, like a lot of people, I think even working in this field now, I didn't realize how deeply it goes and how it's not just like on the community level, it's also very systemic, right? So there's the individual, then there's the community, and then there's our systems that support this, that have to, I don't know how to put it, but that make it so that these individuals are vulnerable, right? It's not just the person themselves. It's got to be a lot of things that fail them for them to get to this point. And I also have a background in mental health. I've been working in the mental health field since I was probably 17. I used to do billing for my mom, who was a therapist and who was our first clinical director. I mentioned earlier that she unfortunately passed away recently, unexpectedly, but she built our clinical program into what it is today. And I think that passion comes from there too, like growing up with her, having these conversations, trying to understand generational healing, even when that wasn't a word or a thing back then, figuring out how to make our children safer, how to protect them. And I think that my passion for ending human trafficking, the greatest part of it stems from me as a mom, my role as a mom, and how I would like to raise my kids in a world that is safer for them.
Yeah. Wow. And it's like it's also like just listening to your share right now, it makes me think too, like your kids may follow in those same footsteps as well. They're watching you just like you followed your mom. What a share.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I'm sorry for your loss. Again, Francesca, how
Thank you.
how um how are you moving forward now that your mom is not here with us? She's here in spirit.
Thank
I'm
I
big
know
on
what you
that.
mean. No, no, I know what you mean, and I really appreciate that question. It's a journey. I don't even, it doesn't feel like forward some days, right? It's like through these waves that come and go, and the most mundane things will bring me to my knees because like we were best friends. We talked every single day. She moved out to Portugal first. I followed a few years later. But it didn't matter. Not a day went by without us talking about life and about my kids and her journey and healing, and especially about Humansave. So it was wonderful to be able to work with her, and I always used to tell her that I built Humansave for her to be able to share her gifts with the world, right? And so in so many ways, Humansave is as much her legacy as I am as her child. And yeah, I mean, it could be like the first year, I remember having to like delete her name from so many things. And every time I was like, oh, I'm not okay. I'm not okay.
Mm,
And still now, we write grants and things, and I'll dig up some forms. I'll see stuff. I'll see her signature. I have to look through emails. Like, it's hard,
yeah.
definitely. But also on the flip side of that, the fire of like, we have to continue existing, that this is something that can't just end because she passed away, right? Like, because what she
Yeah.
built was so much more important than how I feel in every moment, right?
Yeah.
And also recognizing that some days I'm obviously not as productive as I could be, and being okay with that, because that's part of the lessons that she also passed down to me.
Yeah. Wow. Oh
Yeah.
man,
Thank
your
you for
mom
asking.
sounds like a phenomenal woman,
She was
Francesca.
amazing. Thank you. She was
um,
amazing.
well, her legacy is definitely living, and you are here, serving the community and sharing. Can you share a little bit about what your what your passion entitles every day as you meet folks? And I know you stated you're in Portugal, so how is that working out? Because we're here in California, and we with Connect Impact Hub, we help nationally, virtually. So
Mm.
are you is your organization also doing the same on a national level as well, or international level?
Uh-oh. So yes, all of our clients are currently in California because that's how our licensure works, right? But our trainings and workshops are across the US and in the Philippines and in Portugal. I did my first couple of workshops out here in person. Fortunately, one of the positive things that came out of the pandemic was uh, it being more accepted. However, because we served all of California and our therapists came from all over, NorCal and all the way SoCal, like we've always kind of operated remotely. So we weren't too
Nice.
jarred. Again, my mom was doing the supervision from Portugal as well. So we kind of always had this rhythm about, doing remote work. But I will also say that for our clients, it seems to be better. A lot of them are much more, find this much more accessible. Telehealth is much more accessible to them. There's no barriers to transportation and all of that. So in that sense, it definitely works well. And I'm also really lucky that the communities, boards, and things that I'm part of have been very accepting and embracing of the fact that I moved, but still want to be a part of the community. Long Beach will always be the city that raised me, so I'm really passionate about supporting Long Beach initiatives as much as possible. So we stayed on the Long Beach Chamber of Commerce. I'm still on the Women's Business Council board. I'm a core member for the Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force. We work regularly with Long Beach Unified School District youth. Like, it's just, I don't know, like, because of the capabilities of, tech now, it didn't seem like a big deal. So I don't really think about it that often, that I'm so far away, because I'm constantly, texting people and emailing, and our work is still there. So yeah, it's pretty
Well, now
seamless, I
you have
think.
another connection in Monterey.
Yeah, no, I'm so stoked. I was like, oh, you're in California. I can't believe that somebody from California agreed to wake up at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday to do this. I literally thought you were East Coast, so
I
super
know.
excited.
I got ready just for you, Francesca.
I feel, you know what? That was the first thing I thought. I was like, not only are you ready at 7:30, you got up to get ready. And I'm so humbled by that and so grateful, because I know that is like not what we want to do on a Saturday morning after a long week at
But
work. So
yeah,
I'm so,
yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah. No, Jane says, and here I'm just going to show really quickly here. Francesca's
Aw,
workshops are phenomenal.
thank
Um,
you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, I got up because this is important, Francesca. You know what
Mm,
you're doing is so important, and I honestly don't have a lot of knowledge in this area, and I am here to learn from you. And I know this conversation will even go further than that,
for sure.
but I would love to learn, because I am out on the field consistently with the homeless members. I'm walking, I'm coming across different members. And sometimes I don't know their story from the get go, and I'm learning as I go. But I've come across young women who will come up and ask for help and then disappear, and so
Mm,
I want to learn a little bit from you, what I need to look out for, and anyone who may be here with us today on the live or on the replay. And again, this will be shared with my members that I particularly work with, as well as other advocates. So if you could share a little bit knowledge with us, that would be wonderful, Francesca, because again, we're here to learn from you. And then who should we reach out to in crisis situations?
right. So I think, especially within the under-resourced communities, right? It's important for us to be aware of ways that human trafficking shows up that isn't called human trafficking, right? A lot of survivors and victims, while they were in it, would never have considered it that. And so, one of the things to look out for, I think, would be individuals in abusive relationships, right? A lot of victims consider their pimps, their exploiters, to be their boyfriends, right? Even in the now very blown up case of P. Diddy and Cassie, right? Like, there is a level of loyalty in those moments, and that part makes it difficult. And then also, because so many components mirror a domestic violence relationship, a toxic relationship, which in a lot of different communities is normalized. And so those individuals are experiencing that, but then there's an added layer of exploitation, right? Somebody is gaining money in exchange for the person they're exploiting services, right? So a lot of times what you're listening for is really like, are they in safe relationships? The people that they hang out with, are they feeling safe? And it really is distilled to that core thing. The exploitation is just a top layer of that. Another one, I think, that under resourced communities experience, especially the homeless or the unhoused members of our community, would be survival sex, like engaging in sex acts in exchange for shelter, for food. It's very, for them, it seems like a choice, and which for a lot of people, right after, they feel ashamed to say that something happened, because they feel like it was their fault. They said okay to that. But in reality, right, like, they were definitely being exploited because they're hungry. They're hungry, and or they want to get out of the super hot weather or the super cold weather, and they just want to feel safe. And so they exchange the only things that they have for that measure of safety and well-being. So yeah, I think those are the two that are very, very common. And in addition to that, like the added layer of technology, right? Being on OnlyFans, Instagram. I mean, it could be literally on any platform, but trading photos, it just, a lot of these things have become so normalized within our culture that we might not pause to think of it as exploitation. Um, and in some spaces, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I'm just listening. I was just thinking of something out loud and mentally, not out loud. But I was in a meeting recently, and there was a trigger moment for someone, and they were there. There was a video that was it's sent out to others, and not with their authorization. And
Ooh,
so it was, even though there was a conversation that came up, but that triggered going back to that space where that video, someone got a hold of this video and then was saying they were going to share it if they didn't do this and that. So
right.
they were able to get like law enforcement involved and were able to address it. But it still lingers in certain
Yeah,
situations. So
for
as you
sure.
were
And that was,
speaking, that was just coming up, Francesca, for me right now, and I'm like, wow, okay. Uh, Certain conversations, even though you may be past it, will still affect you.
oh, for sure. Because that's the thing, right? A lot of us throw around the words like rescue. This person has been rescued. And then in the news, it's like, that's the end of that. That sounds amazing. There's these raids, there's these operations, this many people arrested, this many victims rescued. What people don't understand or realize is that for a lot of those individuals, the road through healing is even more uncomfortable and painful than what they had just gone through. That's the dark of that. I want to point out that for many of these individuals, if not every single one of them, they experienced early childhood sexual abuse. They lived in domestic violence situations. And so the template that they have for what a relationship is supposed to look and feel like is very, very close already
Mm,
to an exploitive relationship, right? Exploitative relationship. And so that wasn't that uncomfortable. What becomes uncomfortable now is learning how to trust somebody, learning how to look within themselves and accept and embrace the parts um, that had to do all kinds of things to survive, right? And those things, the PTSD, the trauma, all of those things that you're talking about, they linger on if there's no intervention without the healing. They're not actually free. There is no rescue, and nobody else can rescue them, right? Like individuals can take them out of situations or open the door for them, but the true rescue is very personal. That is their personal journey of healing, and that's the hard part. Being able to at some point in life sleep, right? If you think of early childhood abuse and something happening to someone before the age of 5, which is the most common, um, that child hasn't slept like a good night's sleep since that moment. And then you
mm,
add decades to that, right? By the time they're on the streets, by the time they're doing a lot of
yeah.
stuff people are judging them for, by the time they get to that point, um, they so much of who they are has been subconsciously shaped by the things that happened to them that they had no control over. And so much of those things are things that people who don't know any better will look at them and blame them for, right? These symptoms, basically. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Whew. Francesca.
sorry, I know it's heavy, but on
It's
the flip
it's
side of that,
yeah.
okay, I feel like I always have to temper this with the hopeful things because the hope is that's the catalyst for change, right? Like
Yeah.
none of us are going to get up and do anything if we really think that there's nothing that can be done. But I will
Mhm.
say that one of the greatest blessings of being a mental health organization in the anti-trafficking space is that we get to actually watch our clients heal, transcend the trauma, get through and become completely different versions of themselves. So we provide therapy long term. We don't cut them off at, 40 sessions, 60 sessions. And we figured out how to get the funding or do it pro bono, right? Because
Mhm.
we want to be able, just like private practice clinics can see their clients until their clients are the ones who are saying, we don't need your help anymore. That's what we
Yeah.
want to be able to provide. And so we've had clients from like 2018 all the way to now that we've gotten to see, like, there's been waves, there's been grief, there's been so much pain. And then there's also like the wins, graduating college, getting custody back, finding stable jobs, getting housing. And then even the most beautiful part is them turning around and giving back. And
Oh, yeah.
every single time without fail, after 8 years, right, of watching these patterns, every single time without fail, they turn around and they give back. They are the greatest hope for other victims and survivors, pouring resources into serving victims and survivors, especially. Like, they turn around and they're the ones that are doing the most. So it's there's so much hope. Like, really, there's so many individuals, especially survivor leaders in this space, that I've met and just been like, one, if I passed you by on the street, I would never know. I would never know anything that you've been through. And all of that to say, like, you don't carry or wear your trauma anymore, right? Like, there's been so much healing. Um, and on the like, to tie it back, like, people heal, people change. Those are not the defining moments of their life, right? Like, it feels like that in those moments, but once they're able to kind of move through that with the right tools and support and love for themselves, they've completely changed their lives. And it's not that anymore. That's not the thing that makes them them. So I just want to
Thank
share
you,
that.
Francesca. Yeah, thank you. Um, we have a comment here from Jane. She said, I avoid utilizing the word rescue for that purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an icky word when you start to understand why a lot of people use the word, right?
Mhm.
And then when you also know how much work the victim and survivors have to do to get to that place. Like, they are the only ones who can rescue themselves. We are the only ones who can rescue ourselves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that is so true. Oh man. So kind of like we can't do when we meet our members, our homeless members, we can't do the work unless you are with us. You have to be with us so we can walk together to help you.
right.
um
And
because we all need help, Francesca. So
oh
uh,
yeah,
we're all here working together. um I do have a
absolutely.
question though about how are these situations, how are they connecting with you? So for example, like in the hospital there's a team called the SART team. When there's a situation that comes up, and there's a whole team that comes together from different organizations to help, whether it's a child or an adult, or a senior, with that process. um, does does your organization work the same, kind of like they come get connected with healthcare, law enforcement, and we're all working together? Like, how does that process look like?
For us, so our referrals, just like, they come from everywhere. We're active in the Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force, and then we're still technically, I think, members of the LA Regional Human Trafficking Task Force. But a lot of organizations will find us through Google. I've heard from our partners all across the board that we are the only one that they've heard of, the only mental health organization that's specifically dedicated to working with this population. So, yeah, like, we work with anyone and everyone. We've gotten referrals from FBI, work pretty closely with some individuals in Homeland Security, but also local nonprofits. So,
Okay. And do you work with
yeah.
health insurance plans or?
No, we don't. We're not paneled with any health insurance. So we were billing the state restitution fund, so the California Victims of Crime program, if you're familiar, but we haven't been paid for any services since 2023. It's a bit complicated. So we've been subcontracting our work. So if an organization writes in their grant mental health care, but they don't have mental health care, then they hire us to provide services.
Good to
Or
know.
we have done some pro bono work as well. Grants, right? Like, some grants fund therapy for survivors. And of course, our very, very generous donors and sponsors. They have really been the ones who have kept us going through some very, very financially difficult years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, my next question is, I know you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation here from 2 to 85. Um, those two shares. How was that experience? If you could share a little bit about like
Yeah.
how was that for our knowledge?
Yeah, I our first our first clients, our first case came from Homeland Security, and it was many, many children, like 20 kids who were affected, most of them under the age of 10 for that particular case. And that was our first case, right? And so here I was, just barely started the organization, thinking that most of our clients would be 16 to 25. I did hear about child sexual exploitation and the dark web through my work in law enforcement, but I don't know. I didn't really expect to see it so soon and so many, right? So many victims. And my kid at the time, my older kid, was 4. And one of the first intakes I ever did for that whole case was involving a 4-year-old kid. And I just remember my heart like shattering, right? It was completely unexpected. And again, part of that case too was a 2-year-old kid who, by the time we started working with them, and even younger, during the exploitation itself. So it was heartbreaking and so difficult. But at the same time, I remember the parent of the 4-year-old and so much joy like that was still had even during intake. They were playing and just the patience and the love and the kindness. And in that moment, I also realized like, wow, they are so much more than what happened to them, especially children who are so resilient. Um, yeah, so I think on the thread of that, right? I went home and totally fell apart. My husband was like holding me. I'm like, this was a really bad day. Like, I can't even believe that this exists. And to the extent, right? Like, this one case had 20 kids. And that was just the 20 kids identified in our area of operation. And so, yeah, that was it's still, I still think about it, right? But on the flip side of that, again, always the flip side, always the hopeful parts. That's one of the families that we were able to continue working with, and just seeing the transitions into the kids growing up and being, kind, joyful, loving, having a great relationship with the parent. And so, yeah, like there is also hope. But yes, the thing I want people to understand about working in this space, especially for survivor leaders, because there's a lot of survivor leaders who don't get enough recognition for doing this work, is that we are so exposed to the worst parts of humanity. And if we cannot practice radical hopefulness, radical hope, um, we wouldn't be able to continue, right, with this work at all. Like it just takes so much. And then so for a survivor leader, somebody who has gone through this, who has gone through the trauma that I'm talking about, to still turn around and expose themselves, leave themselves open to those wounds, like constantly, um, hearing those stories, bearing witness to the depravity of human beings, it's a lot. It is a lot. And so, just building this community, being gentle and kind to each other, being supportive, having conversations like this from people who want to learn. In the very beginning, when I started this organization, I always felt like I didn't belong in this space, because I'm not a survivor. And because, for whatever reason, I was new and it was just like weird going to these meetings and trying to talk about this stuff. Um, but later on, and I'm glad I stayed, right? I felt very uncomfortable, but I'm glad I stayed, and solely for the reason that I don't believe that the only people fighting exploitation should be people who are survivors of it. Like, how messed up is it that, one, all of those things had to happen to them for them to get to that place that they were abused, and then two, now humanity is like relying on them to be the only ones to save other people, or to help other people, to protect children. So yeah, like I'm so glad we are having this conversation, because these are the conversations that need to be had, especially with people who would maybe never talk about this outside of these spaces.
Yeah. Francesca, I really sincerely appreciate your vulnerability right now as you spoke about
Thank
the
you.
space. Um, I can resonate with your share as well as a founder. Um,
Mm,
you know, we may have not walked in those shoes, but we do have a passion for what we do. And so it is a very powerful message, Francesca. Um, but also the impactful work that you get up every day to do for children and adults. I mean, all people walks of life. What does healing look like when they connect with you?
The hard parts, right, in the very beginning, as you can imagine, a lot of clients, especially if they were referred by some, like with law enforcement or someone else, that they weren't the ones who were seeking therapy. And I think this was more common in the early days when mental health was not such a popular thing, right? They would no show for like multiple first sessions. They never actually connect, right? And that's totally okay. That's just like the sign that, okay, maybe you're not ready for this yet. But eventually, when they decided they were ready, like even if that was a year later and they'd come back, like, hey, remember me? And we have all their paperwork still. We're like, okay, oh, you're ready. And they're like the most consistent because they decided that this was something that they wanted for themselves. I think when we look at healing, a lot of times we skip all the way to the end, or at least as far into the end as we can think of, where people seem able to talk about things without being triggered, or they just seem happier. Their life circumstances have completely changed. All the parts in between are so messy. So messy, because the one thing that trauma does to, especially to a child, but to anybody, is it makes them feel like there's something wrong with them. And that belief is so difficult. It's so difficult to change. And arguably, the trauma always, always, always starts in early childhood. And that's part of what makes it so difficult to change, is because children naturally believe that everything is about them, right? Like they're very egocentric in that way. Like, so if bad things happen to them, they believe they deserve those things. If good things happen to them, they believe they deserve those things. And so, being in a toxic environment, you subconsciously grow up thinking, well, I deserve everything that I'm getting. And this is how the world works, both of those things together, right? And so having to unravel that, and in the subconscious level, because again, kids don't really, a lot of people think in words necessarily, but children especially, like remembering how you used to think of yourself as a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old is going to be hard, right? And so getting all the way down to those patterns, trying to figure out why you are the way that you are, and then meet that part of you with compassion, like that is so hard. That's not just hard for people who have survived sex trafficking or labor trafficking. That's hard for everyone. There's so much vulnerability involved in that. There's so much grace that we have to have for each other, that we have to learn how to have for each other, ourselves and each other. And being able to connect with ourselves, like the healing. So if the trauma is the thing that divides us from ourselves and goes, ooh, there's something wrong with me, and that separates us from ourselves, right? There's like a layer there of not wholeness. Then healing will feel like, I accept every part of myself. I accept every part of me that had to do the things that I had to survive, and I love myself anyways. And wow, what an amazing thing that I had those defense mechanisms. What an amazing thing that I survived things that people don't, right? And that I'm still here with the opportunity to change, and put down these very normal way of responding to very abnormal things that never should have happened to me, and put them down because they don't match the way I want to live anymore. Like that's what that really looks and feels like. And so healing feels like wholeness. It feels like the person really actually genuinely likes themselves. The closer they are to that, the farther away they are from, ugh, there's something wrong with me, right? So I don't know if that's answers your question, but
That's beautiful. No, I love it, Francesca. And I also, you keeping that door open until they're ready, even if it takes more than a month, a year, that they know that they can come when they're ready.
absolutely.
And I completely understand when you say, um, we want to help, right?
That one.
And they'll come, but then they'll disappear, or they'll just, something triggered them, and whatever had come up, and then they disappear, and then they reappear. And as long as they know that there's that door that's still open, that's like hope. It's hope for them.
Right.
So, wow, what a beautiful message, Francesca.
Thank you. And
Just listening to your share as you're speaking, I mean, that's healing in itself.
thank you.
I think, and giving hope to many people out here that are walking around broken.
Feeling broken, but not broken. But yeah, I mean, I think in this space, I think we mentioned it earlier a little bit. There's no room for ego. There's only humility. If you want to show up and help, like there's only space for humility, and that is understanding that when somebody ghosts you, it's not about you. If your client is just like not ready, if your client isn't ready to show up, isn't ready to leave the life, goes back, like that has nothing to do with us, right? Like, I mean, in the sense that we can't personalize it and be upset by it and be irritated by it. Everybody has to walk their own journey. And sometimes, especially like domestic violence, right? Like, what's the statistic? They go back 7 times on average before they're able to leave. This is like that. And, during COVID, for instance, a lot of people were very hit financially. And so for some individuals, it's like, well, if that's how you can make money to make rent so you're not homeless, how do we judge that and go, well, it's like you didn't learn anything? You know what I mean? Like we can't do that. And I think that actually doesn't always come from evil either. It's not like from people who are just mean. I think it's because it is very scary to care so much for these individuals and have literally no say in how they live their lives, because that is what service providers do. That you bring your heart and soul to this work. It's not just a job you show up for. Could literally be doing anything else, making probably the same, if not more money, right? That's the reality of it. And that's the sad reality of it.
I definitely would be making more money, Francesca, for sure.
No, for sure. I feel you. No, definitely. Especially as a founder, right? Like in the early days, it's like, do I want to do this? No, but you do because there is like joy in that connection, but it's also terrifying because you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. And one of the things, one of the skills that we have to learn or build really strongly as service providers is that boundary of like, I'm going to cheer for you with all my heart and soul when, through the ups, through the downs, through all of it. And I'm not going to let it touch what I think you think of me or make it into something that's about me at all, because it's not that. But yeah, it's scary, right? For service providers, like your heart is broken. Something happens to one of your clients, their children especially, or even when they're adults, your heart is broken. You've been seeing them, you care about them. And I think that space, like that desire to be like, then you just get angry. Like the response, instead of that sadness, that despair, the grief of what you're facing is like, I'm just gonna be mad, because being angry is a lot easier than being sad for some people, right? So I think that's part of it too, and that's part of why service providers, people who are out there actually talking to these individuals and building relationships with them, like you. And I can tell that you're very humble and very all about being a space for healing and acceptance for these people. Like that is not easy either. And we do need to talk about that more, because we need to advocate for better pay for people who are doing work like this as well.
Yeah. I was going to write a post yesterday about ego. I was going to write all this and this and that. And I said, you know what? I'm letting my feelings get in the way right now, because yesterday, sometimes when we're doing this work, whether it's what you're doing or what I'm doing, out here in the communities that we serve, whether it's virtually or in person, we're dealing with real lives. It's not something we go behind a desk and we're doing just the work. No, we're actually doing the real work. And it can be feelings get involved. And I don't say this in a bad way, because we're humans, and we have a heart, and we have feelings, and we feel as we're also feeling with them.
Right.
And we understand now why we do what we do, because now it's not just about them. Now it's, if we could serve one person and we get all these skills and knowledge, imagine how many more we can serve, right?
Right.
But just understanding that we will come across people that are strong-minded as well, in this field, and that it's okay, we know how we're moving. uh, I always like to do coffee, a warm
Yeah,
space, and they feel that, and I also
of
feel that
course.
that big wall that's been set there start breaking down, because I'm there with them, focus on what we are here to do. So
Yeah.
wow.
Thank you for that. Thank you for what you do and how you do it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you too, Francesca. And I, just having this conversation with you, um, I recently had a conversation with one of my members, who had mentioned, that they were sexually assaulted. And as we started talking, the conversation just kept the rug. They did have that conversation. In this, um, and it was kind of like, I'm just going to put it under, like, I don't want to talk about it. So now we're in the phases of, we're waiting when this person is ready so we can go on to the next step, but I'm trying my best not to push the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But it is on high alert on my radar.
That's amazing because I think when you say that and we think of it from a service provider standpoint, it's very like there is a sense where we feel as service providers entitled to that information. Somebody somewhere along the way told us that it was our job to get that information, but our job is to make people feel safe.
Right.
And if we think about something that happens to us that feels violating, right? Whether it could be something as a child, somebody being mean to us, we don't really want to talk about it. The
Mm.
first thing we want to do is not talk about it. We want to forget it, right? Like that is that's the normal defense mechanism for that, because if we have to say it out loud, one, we're really fun. The fun part of online stuff
It's okay.
just totally
I
got
know
lost. I'm
it's
sorry. I don't know if that was
no,
me.
it's okay. It's okay. It could have been me too, because I wasn't sure. I'm like, it happened to me last time too. So it might be me,
I'm
but I don't
sorry.
know. But we're here.
We are.
It's okay,
I don't
Francis.
remember
Don't
what I was
worry.
saying. Just you know what? I lost it. I lost my
It's,
train of thought.
it's okay. It's okay. I'm just going to share a couple of comments here. Jane
Oh,
shared,
Martha's the hope
Martha is the
dealer.
hope dealer. Oh
I
yeah.
love that. I love that.
We are. And I say we because it's not just me, it's all of
Mm.
us. It's a whole team collaboration. Jane says the
Mm.
most important tool is saving lives in the heart. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, it's a quote. I apologize, by Alani Bankhead. That is
And it's
beautiful.
true.
It's true.
It's true. And I do
It's
remember
very
what I was
true.
saying, and it's that, right? Like, we don't want to talk about the bad things that happened. It's a very normal response. And yet we expect survivors, victims to, like, just, hey, by the way, let me tell you all the worst things that ever happened in my life. I don't really know you, but let me tell you anyways. And that's crazy, you know? And I
Yeah,
love your,
you know,
sorry.
yeah. Oh no, Francesca, go ahead. Go. I just thought of something you were saying that because I hear from you. But go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, I love that that was your that the way that you handle that, right? Like very humanly. Like, oh, you don't want to talk about that. Okay. let's talk
Yeah.
about something else. Like, let's connect
Yeah.
some other way. And I trust that when
Yeah.
you feel safe, if you feel that it's important to share, then you
Mm-hmm.
will. Right.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I had someone who recently shared with me when they go to therapy, because they were being encouraged to go to therapy because of their circumstances. And they said they would go to therapy and they would just get triggered. Their PTSD would just get triggered because it was like they're going back to the past when they're trying to move forward. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I know
so many thoughts on that.
I'm interested to know because I was sitting there and I'm like taking my notes, I'm listening and I'm like, I would be triggered too. Why would I want to keep going back to repeating what I just, what I went through years ago and talking about it now, 30 years later?
Right. No, my first thought on that is, one, we have to start telling people that therapy isn't one size fits all, right? Like, you can't, and not every therapist is going to be a good fit. You have to be able to feel safe with them for them to really be able to help you. And then two, I know that when I started Humansave, so 2017, one of the most famous or most popular, most widely used trauma therapies was trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. So as you can see, the focus is on the trauma. And that was so severely triggering for our clients that so many of them came to us telling us that they never wanted to do therapy again, but maybe they'll give us a shot because their last therapist was like rehashing everything all the time. And our minds are powerful. Somebody says pink elephant, first thing we do is imagine it. So can you imagine talking about all these things again? You're literally reliving it in your body, right? Feeling the suffocation, the pain, all of those things. And if there isn't a way to move through that, for most people, that's like not the way that they want to do it anyways, right? Like, that's not the style. That's not how they want to delve. And it has to be very tailored to this individual. And so when I say not one size fits all for therapy, therapists should also be able to adapt to what their client needs, right? So one of the things that we train our therapists on very passionately is that if after session your client feels closer to themselves, more at peace with themselves, more compassion towards themselves, then you did it right. Whether you use narrative therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, any modality, right? It doesn't matter what the modality is. If they feel closer to themselves after session, then you did it right. If, on the other hand, they feel farther away from themselves, if they feel more shame, more disgust, more whatever, like they don't like themselves even more after session, then you did it wrong. No matter what modality you thought you were using, it was the wrong one, right? And so understanding like how to be gentle when it comes to somebody else's healing. Like, they are so vulnerable in these moments that they're trusting you to safely hold them as, they feel like they're falling apart, or as they share with you something that has made them fall apart in the past. And just having like the humanity behind the work to know that the first thing that you want to do is be able to keep them safe. And the second thing is like, you want them to like themselves more. Like, that is actually what healing is. Right. So they can do all these interventions, they can do all that stuff. But if at the end of the day, they like themselves less, then those interventions are useless, So, yeah, I don't know. We get that a lot. We get so many clients that come to us and say that my previous therapist re-traumatized me. And that's part of why our mission is to provide trainings to other service providers, to other therapists and social workers, because I don't think that every single one of those meant to do that, right? Like, it's just like a gap in knowledge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely is. As we're meeting members, I'm not a mental health provider. And so my hat to them as well, because it's not an easy duty as well to be taking all in everything that's being shared. Because that's also another conversation to have, Francesca, as well, on the other end of us, what's going on, as we're taking the notes and how to leave it at you leave it outside.
Right.
Don't bring it with you. Don't bring it home.
Don't bring it home. Yeah.
Mhm. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, so in my work with the homeless population, we I always say, let's, we'll if you're interested, I don't encourage it, but it's up to them. And if they say no, then we don't go forward, depending on their circumstances regarding therapy or psychiatry. Because, again, I got some real trauma cases, and some of the folks, they don't want to. They rather just deal with it through church,
Yeah.
I've heard, or exercising, or connecting with friends, and just declining that type of help because it's triggering.
Yeah. I think people know what's good for them. And one of the most healing things is for us to reconnect with our gut instinct, right? And so if something doesn't feel safe for them, then it's not safe for them, right? And I think that there's so many different things that we need in order to live fulfilling lives and living with community and in our bodies and all of those things that you mentioned, church, exercise, all of those things. They all have very powerful healing capabilities if we're with the right people and in the right space. So, like people know what's best for them in some of these cases. And maybe it could be like a conversation. So if you feel like they would benefit from mental health, but maybe their experience in the past has not been good, then you could also encourage them to vet the mental health provider, right? Like not every single, like just the first one that you found doesn't need to be the one that you go with. There is a level
Yep.
of they should make you feel safe. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. That definitely shouldn't have happened to you. But yeah,
And
like people, we don't heal if we don't feel safe. So already right there. Yeah. Already
Yeah.
right there. If it doesn't feel like a safe choice, then it's not for them.
Yep. I agree. Oh my goodness, the time went by a little too fast today. There's so many conversations that I wanted to have. But the positive side is I'm actually going away with some really good knowledge that you shared, Francesca.
Thank
Um, you know, human trafficking. And here I thought, my thought process, mind you, haven't really looked into that myself. Because I've been focused on other areas, and human trafficking has not been one of them. But I was in Houston for a couple of years, and I noticed when I was in Houston, all the bathroom stalls that I would go to in public places, they always had a notice.
trafficking. Okay.
Yes. And
Yep.
and so later, I found out that Houston is like the hot spot for human trafficking. And so, it's as a person in the field working out, and looking at people, because it could be anyone, men and women, paying attention and really listening, but not pushing unless they're comfortable with that conversation. So yeah, I'm definitely, you got me over here.
I would
lot.
love to outside of this do a workshop for, and your the people that you serve, or for your nonprofit, however. That's like a proper, this is what it looks like, this is what to watch out for. These are the
And
signs.
I have someone in mind already. Someone who's been through it, and I think you would be perfect to have a conversation. So I definitely will be reaching out to get that connection going, because it's a process. It's a process. So Francesca, what would be an advice that you can provide someone who's stepping into advocacy, or someone who's stepping into this field of community, giving back, humanity, that you could share?
I think I would share that remember always that the most important, the greatest impact you could ever have is at home. You know, all of us are thinking, oh, I want to volunteer there. I want to go do that. I want to, outside, external, start at home. Be a safe person for the people who love you most and for those you love most, especially the children in your life, their friends, all of that. Like once you are a safe person for them, you are giving them armor against exploiters, against predators, against future trauma, all of those things. But always, always remember to start where you are already, with what you have and what you know. So start at home and then within your own community. That is where you're going to make the greatest difference. And if you do this for strangers but not at home, then arguably, your duty is to the people who are counting on you and who love you. So your greatest duty, I should say.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful poem. It almost sounded like a poem.
I just feel like we all forget that, right? Like we do this as a job, and then a lot of times we go there and we do these interventions, or we have these things, and then when we get home, we forget that is actually that's where we need to be doing it the very most.
100%. This is the heart, the home. Yep.
Exactly.
So Francesca, how can we connect with you? I did share your LinkedIn information and our website as well on our YouTube channel. But if you can also share that here in the video, that would be great.
Absolutely. Do I type it, or how does that? Yeah, I can type it, right?
Well, you can either type it, or you can also share it.
Wait, that's a private chat. My bad. Okay, so it's humansave.org. And you can send me an email, francesca@humansave.org. And we're mostly active on Instagram, I think. That's where we share a lot of our updates, our newsletter, and our Instagram. So just search for us, humansave_org. And that's where we kind of talk about what we're up to, any upcoming events, and of course, again, our newsletter. So humansave.org/subscribe also will work.
Awesome. And we're here now on LinkedIn too.
Hey, yes. Yes, you know what? LinkedIn has been amazing. And a lot of that has been because of Jane and connecting with her and her connecting us with so many people. So thank you, Jane. And look at that. Jane put the link to our website on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna share it right now.
Thank you, Jane.
Please connect with Francesca. And Francesca, thank you so much for being here with me this morning, this afternoon, or evening. I think in Portugal. And Jane, thank you so much for connecting us as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody who's here, who's watching. Very much appreciate this. Thank you for getting ready and waking up early. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And if you can come, we have a social Saturday chat coming up next. So come join us there to network. And I'll send you the link if you'd like, if you're able to. But I want to thank everyone here that's joined us again in supporting Connect Impact Hub as we move forward. And I will see you all very soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Saturday. Bye.